Process group. Tool analogy, blueprint. The initiating process group is like the blueprint for a building. This is where the project is defined at a broad level and high-level project information, like initial scope, objectives, stakeholders, and a project manager are identified. Like a blueprint, it provides an overview without detailing every small component, allowing stakeholders to understand the general idea of what's intended to be built. Planning process group. Tool analogy, detailed architectural plan. This group is like a detailed architectural plan which outlines every detail of the project, schedule, cost, quality, communication, risk, and resource management, among other things. It's not just about understanding what the final product looks like, as with the blueprint, but understanding all the specifics of how to build it. Executing process group. Tool analogy, construction equipment. Just like construction equipment, like cranes, bulldozers, etc., that actually builds the building. The executing process group is where the plans are put into action and work toward the project objectives is performed. The project plan is put into motion, and team members carry out the plan. Monitoring and controlling process group. Tool analogy, measuring tape amp, level. The monitoring and controlling process group can be thought of as the measuring tape and level used during construction. They ensure that what is being built aligns with the architectural plan. This phase involves tracking, reviewing, and regulating the progress and performance of the project, identifying any areas where changes to the plan are required and initiating those changes. Closing process group. Tool analogy, handover documents and keys. Similar to handing over the documents, keys, and perhaps a guide to a new building to the owner. The closing process group is about formalizing the completion of the project, ensuring all the work is done and objectives are met, and transferring the product or service over to the customer or stakeholders. This also includes ensuring that all aspects of the projects are closed out properly, including contracts, and that lessons learned are documented. Initiating process group. Develop project charter. Analogy. This is like laying the foundation for the house. Before any construction begins, you need a clear blueprint or plan that outlines what the house will look like, what materials will be used, the budget, and the timeline. This blueprint will be the guiding document throughout the construction process. In a more direct sense, imagine creating a formal document that provides the homeowner with a clear picture of what they can expect, the size of the house, the number of rooms, the design aesthetics, the budget, and the completion date. This document gives the builder project manager the authority to proceed with the project and confirms the homeowner's sponsor's agreement and commitment. Identify stakeholders. Analogy. Before you start building the house, you need to know everyone who has an interest in its construction. This would include the homeowner, the bank or financier, neighbors who might be affected by the construction, local government officials who need to approve the plans, suppliers who will provide the materials, and subcontractors like plumbers, electricians, and masons who will work on specific parts of the house. Just as you would consult the homeowner regularly to ensure the house meets their expectations, in project management, you engage with stakeholders to ensure the project aligns with their interests and to manage their influence on the project. Planning process group. 4.2 Develop project management plan. Tool analogy, blueprints. Just as a contractor needs blueprints to understand the complete design and structure of a house, a project manager uses the project management plan to outline the comprehensive approach and details for executing the project. 5.1 Plan scope management. Tool analogy, measuring tape. Before constructing, measurements are crucial. The measuring tape ensures that you're building according to specified dimensions. Similarly, scope management helps in defining what is and isn't part of the project. 5.2 Collect requirements. Tool analogy, client consultation notes. Before designing a house, a contractor consults with the homeowner about their desires and needs. These consultation notes represent the gathered requirements for the project. 5.3 Define scope. Tool analogy, boundary markers. These markers define the exact space within which the house will be built, just as defining the scope sets the boundaries of what the project will and won't cover. 5.4 Create WBS. Tool analogy, construction site layout. This layout divides the construction into sections like foundation, walls, roofing, etc. Similarly, the WBS breaks the project into smaller, manageable pieces. 6.1 Plan schedule management. Tool analogy, calendar planner. Just as contractors have a timeline for when each construction phase should be completed, the schedule management plan determines the timeline for project activities. 6.2 Define activities. Tool analogy, task list, a list specifying each step of the construction, like digging the foundation or installing windows. 6.3 Sequence activities. Tool analogy, flowchart, demonstrates the order of operations. For example, you can't roof the house before building the walls. 6.4 Estimate activity durations. Tool analogy, hourglass stopwatch, estimates how long each construction phase will take. 6.5 Develop schedule. Tool analogy, Gantt chart, a visual representation of the construction timeline, indicating when each phase starts and finishes. 7.1 Plan cost management. Tool analogy, budget spreadsheet, outlines all expected expenses from materials to labor. 7.2 Estimate costs. Tool analogy, calculator, used to predict the financial investment needed for each phase of construction. 7.3 Determine budget. Tool analogy, wallet bank account, represents the total amount allocated for the entire construction project. 8.1 Plan quality management. Tool analogy, quality checklist, ensures that each construction phase meets specific standards. 9.1 Plan resource management. Tool analogy, inventory list, identifies all resources, from bricks to machinery, required for construction. 9.2 Estimate activity resources. Tool analogy, shopping list, lists down materials and tools needed for each construction activity. 10.1 Plan communications management. Tool analogy, walkie-talkies, phones, devices ensuring smooth communication between the construction team, suppliers, and clients. 11.1 Plan risk management. Tool analogy, safety gear, precautions to protect against potential hazards during construction. 11.2 Identify risks. Tool analogy, risk assessment form, lists possible issues, from weather delays to material shortages. 11.3 Perform qualitative risk analysis. Tool analogy, color-coded warning labels, prioritizes risks based on severity. 11.4 Perform quantitative risk analysis. Tool analogy, risk probability meter, evaluates the numerical chance of each risk occurring. 11.5 Plan risk responses. Tool analogy, first aid kit backup plan, contains remedies for when things. 11.4 Perform quantitative risk analysis. Tool analogy, digital thermometer or weather station. Just as a builder would use these tools to quantify environmental conditions, like temperature or humidity, that might impact construction. This process quantitatively assesses the potential impact of identified risks on overall project objectives. 7.5 Plan risk responses. Tool analogy, toolbox with various tools. In construction, you have tools ready for various unexpected situations, like a drill, hammer, or wrench. Similarly, when planning risk responses, you're preparing a set of strategies or tools to address each potential risk, whether it's to mitigate, transfer, avoid, or accept it. Execute process group. Direct and manage project work. Tool analogy. Construction site foreman. The foreman ensures that the day-to-day activities on the construction site align with the plan. They directly oversee the work, making sure everything progresses according to the blueprint. Manage project knowledge. Tool analogy. Reference manuals AMP, Best Practices Guide. These are the collective lessons and techniques that have been learned from past projects. Just as a builder might refer to a manual for best methods or troubleshooting. Project knowledge ensures mistakes aren't repeated and best practices are followed. Manage quality. Tool analogy, quality control inspector with checklist. The inspector ensures the house is being built to the specified standards. They'll check the quality of materials, the correctness of installations, and the safety of the construction. Acquire resources. Tool analogy, materials and equipment supplier. Just as you would procure bricks, cement, and equipment like cranes or bulldozers for a construction project, this process is about obtaining the necessary resources for the project. Develop team. Tool analogy, team training and skill workshops. For instance, if you have a team of masons and carpenters, you might conduct training sessions to improve their skills or teach them new techniques. This process is all about enhancing the team's capabilities. Manage team. Tool analogy, team leader or supervisor. This person is responsible for ensuring the team works efficiently and harmoniously. They handle conflicts, allocate tasks, and motivate team members. Manage communications. Tool analogy, site walkie-talkies communication board, ensuring everyone on the construction site is informed about updates, changes, or any important announcements. It's essential to keep lines of communication clear and open. Implement risk responses. Tool analogy, emergency response kit AMP, contingency plans. If there's an unexpected rainstorm, having tarps ready to cover unfinished areas would be an example of a risk response. Similarly, this process is about putting into action the plans made to address potential project risks. Conduct procurements. Tool analogy, purchase orders AMP, vendor agreements. This could be analogous to ordering specific tiles the client wanted, or hiring a subcontractor for specialized work. It's about obtaining external resources or services for the project. Manage stakeholder engagement. Tool analogy, client meetings AMP, feedback sessions. Regularly meeting with the homeowner to provide updates, gather feedback, and ensure that the construction aligns with their expectations and vision for the house. Monitor and control process group. Monitor and control. Tool analogy. Site supervisor's daily logbook. The daily logbook keeps track of what has been accomplished, any discrepancies, and makes sure the overall work aligns with the project plan. Perform integrated change control. Tool analogy, architect's blueprint revisions. If changes are requested, whether it's a change in design or materials, the blueprints are updated accordingly after all stakeholders agree. Ensuring everyone is on the same page. Validate scope. Tool analogy, client inspection walkthrough. This is when the homeowner walks through the house to ensure everything has been built to their satisfaction and matches their initial requirements. Control scope. Tool analogy, construction fence or boundary markers. These markers ensure that the construction does not exceed the defined boundaries. Just as scope control ensures that project deliverables stay within the agreed-upon scope. Control schedule. Tool analogy, construction timeline chart in the site office. This chart keeps track of where the project should be at any given time, ensuring that tasks are completed on schedule. Control costs. Tool analogy, budget ledger AMP, expense tracker. A ledger that tracks all expenses against the budget, ensuring that costs are within the allocated budget and adjustments are made if necessary. Control quality. Tool analogy, quality assurance checklist AMP, measuring tools. These ensure that materials and workmanship meet the required standards and everything is up to code. Control resources. Tool analogy, resource allocation board. A board or system that ensures the right number of workers and equipment are available when and where they're needed, optimizing productivity. Monitor communications. Tool analogy, site communication log AMP, meeting minutes. This ensures that all communications, from team meetings to client updates, are documented and any important information is disseminated correctly. Monitor risks. Tool analogy, safety inspection reports. Regular inspections to identify and address any potential risks, ensuring the safety of workers and the project. Control procurements. Tool analogy, vendor contracts AMP, delivery schedules. Managing contracts and ensuring timely delivery of materials and services as per the agreed terms. Monitor stakeholder engagement. Tool analogy, feedback forms AMP, client meetings. Regularly checking in with stakeholders like the homeowner or local authorities to ensure they are engaged and their concerns are addressed promptly. Final inspections. Conduct thorough inspections to ensure that all aspects of the house are built according to the plans, codes, and standards. This might involve third-party inspections for electrical work, plumbing, and other specialized areas. Client walkthrough. Arrange a walkthrough of the property with the client to identify any last-minute fixes or adjustments. Address any concerns or changes the client wishes to have before final acceptance. Completion of punch list. A punch list is a list of final small tasks or fixes that need to be done. Ensure all items on the punch list are addressed. Finalizing payments. Ensure that all payments to suppliers, subcontractors, and laborers have been processed. Receive the final payment from the client after ensuring they are satisfied with the work. Documentation handover. Provide the client with all necessary documentation. This includes warranties, manuals for installed appliances, inspection certificates, and any other relevant paperwork. Handover architectural and structural drawings, as well as any modified plans. Transfer of utilities and services. Project review AMP, lessons learned. Conduct an internal review with your team. Discuss what went well and what could have been done differently. Document any lessons learned for future projects. Celebration. It's not uncommon to have a small celebration or handover ceremony. It's a way to thank everyone involved and formally hand over the keys to the client. Official closure. Once all tasks are done and documentation is complete, officially close the project in any tracking or management systems you have in place. The closing phase ensures that all loose ends are tied up, and the project is wrapped up in a manner that's satisfactory to all stakeholders. It also provides an opportunity to reflect and learn, improving processes for future projects.